Hello and welcome back to Strange Stories with the Seeker and the Skeptic. Today we have a very special interview with world-renowned psychic medium, paranormal investigator, and author MJ Dickson. MJ has been investigating the paranormal for years and has worked on shows such as Paranormal Captured, Destination Fear, Most Terrifying Places, Paranormal Lockdown, Hotel Paranormal, Destinations of the Damned, and In Search of the Paranormal. MJ is the founder of Sage Paranormal and Sage Paracon, and she has written a wonderful book about her experiences, Never Goodbye, Only Goodnight. I absolutely love this book and reading about her experiences with the paranormal. Some of the stories made me laugh, cry, and others scared the shit out of me. MJ, thank you so much for being here with us. We are thrilled to talk with you.
Betty, thank you so much. John, I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, your book was just incredible. I mean, even more so incredible that this is your life, that you have lived just a lifetime of experiences that started at a very young age. So,
Yeah.
can you tell us about that? Like, where did it all start for you?
I mean, I was raised in a psychic family. I had my dad who was the military man and everything had to have a logical explanation and he was the skeptic and he kept things balanced. And then you had my mom and my aunts and grandmother and everybody that was away with the fairies. Like they were communicating with the other side their entire lives. So we were all raised. I mean, I'm fifth generation. We were raised that the paranormal is completely normal. And we were raised with voodoo and witchcraft and psychic abilities and all these weird things. But I took after my dad and I didn't want to believe it. I was pretty much the same, seeing is believing, and I would explain things away until I eventually couldn't anymore.
When was that for you? When could you no longer explain it away?
Oh my gosh, I must have been in my early 20s. I think I was about 21, 22 when eventually I had such a profound experience waking up with my uncle who passed away, stood at the end of my bed, and he was just really excited to tell me something. I mean, this is a full-bodied apparition. We're talking crystal clear, a family member who passed away when I was about 4 years old. And I literally thought I was losing my mind. I was like, that's it. Insane asylum. Here I come. I'm done. This is this is not normal. And that's when I reached the point where I was like, okay, listen, I've explained away a lot of things in my lifetime. I've always tried to search for a logical explanation. I've always tried my best to not be one of the crazy ladies in our family. And it got to that point where I was like, wow, this is happening. This is as good as it gets. Like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to accept it.
How did your mom approach things with you when you were younger and having some strange experiences?
I mean, I remember one of my very first experiences, the same uncle that I saw in my 20s, actually. He had just passed away, and I'd seen a full-bodied apparition in our house. And I looked at my mom and said, Mommy, who's that man? And she just looked at me, burst into tears, and went, Oh no, not you too. And at the time, I mean, I was a kid, I had no idea what she was talking about.
Hmm.
I was more interested in playing video games with my older brother. I was like, okay, bye. Um, but then the more I started experiencing things, the more she would always say to me, let me teach you. Let me tell you about all of this stuff. So it was a very open conversation. I mean, she tried for years to get me to accept the mediumship side and be more prepared for it. And I kept putting it off. I was like, yeah, yeah, crazy lady. Yeah, sure. Okay. Um, until it got to the point when I moved to the UK and my mediumship really kicked in. And I was like, oh boy, okay, mom, help. And she went, no, 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 no. I've tried to explain to you your whole life. You deal with it. And I
Uh,
was like, oh, what now? Where do I start? Like, whoa. So
yeah,
yeah, interesting.
it is interesting. She's like, that ship has sailed. I have tried.
Yep.
Yeah. Did your dad, you said that your dad is a skeptic. Did he not believe, or did he just take the approach of like, let's look at all possibilities first?
I think when I say he's a skeptic, he was a skeptical believer. I think he was a hardcore skeptic until he married my mum. And then, when the crazy lady starts predicting things and everything happens exactly as she said it would, or she would just randomly, I remember one night she woke up in the middle of the night and she was like, Auntie Karen's here. She's just had a stroke. And my dad was like, I'm sorry, what? And we got the phone call the next morning that at the exact time my aunt had a stroke. And we were
Wow.
like, how would she know that?
Mm-hmm.
This particular aunt was in America, in LA at the time, and we're in South Africa. So there's no way she would have known that. And so I think my dad over the years started accepting that there was something else, but he would look for every logical explanation before going, yeah, okay, you got me. I can't explain that.
Yeah.
So I was raised with the best of both worlds. I was always raised to look at it from that skeptical point of view and be like, okay, is it my imagination? Am I overreacting? Is this just my own fight or flight mode? Or is there something paranormal actually happening here? And if so, what is it? And how do we deal with it?
Yep.
So yeah, I think he eventually, towards the end of his life, he had a near-death experience. And when I spoke to him about it after he was in the hospital and everything, he had an asthma attack and he flatlined for 15 minutes. They thought he was
Wow.
gone. And people don't come back from that, or at the very least, you have severe brain damage in that from the
Right.
lack of
Yeah, for
oxygen.
real.
And he was a very different person when he came back. And I spoke to him the one day and I said to him, like, what happened? Like, oh my gosh, tell me everything. And he was like, well, I remember looking at the heart monitor, watching it flatline. I remember that it felt like I went to sleep and I woke up and my mom and my brothers were standing at the side of my bed. And my mom said, you go back now. It is not your time. And he was like, and then it's just like I woke up. Um, so after that experience, he was a very different person. I think that's when he was like, well, can't deny it anymore.
Yeah. Literally experienced it for
Yeah.
myself. Yeah. Oh, I just got chills when you were telling that story. That's incredible.
Do you
Yeah.
feel like growing up with kind of the polar opposites of your parents dealing with these things, you feel that that's kind of shaped where you've gone with this stuff?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, I have thrown myself into investigating and researching the paranormal purely because of my father's side of things. I need to know how we're able to record their voices and why are they still there and what different light spectrums and what different sound frequencies and what the hell's going on? Like, how is this possible compared to my mum's side of just accepting the mediumship and like, oh yeah, okay, someone on the other side's trying to speak to me. I definitely straddle both sides. And I'm very skeptical when it comes to people's stories and their experiences. There's so much more that could be involved. There's mental health issues, there's alcohol abuse, drug abuse, there's so many different things that you have to look at before saying that it is definitely something paranormal. As a friend of mine said, start on Earth and work your way up.
Hmm.
And I think I've always stuck with that, even though I have the mediumship side, it is still so important to have that skeptical side at all times. It
Yeah.
really is.
I gotta believe that just makes you a better investigator,
I hope so.
because I think so, because just the people who are just like, this is what it is, and they're out to prove something, it's like makes maybe for good television, but doesn't make for like that's not the full picture. That's not helping us understand like why things are the way they
Exactly.
are. Why can some people like you have this deep connection and be able to see and feel and experience things like there's something going on there,
Yeah,
and
I
that is
mean,
interesting.
can we measure brain waves during a
Yeah.
reading and see if how that differs to just your normal state of consciousness, or when you're in a deep state of meditation, or is there a way that we can figure out why some people can and some people can't? I mean, there's an experiment that we've been doing. I say we, myself and the author Richard Estep. we've been doing several psychic remote viewing experiments for the last 3, 4 years now. He called me up a few years ago and he was like, hey, if I phone you from a random location in America and you have no idea where I am, could you tell me what you get? And I was like, I don't know. Could I? Let's do it. Like, what
Hmm.
have I got to lose? It's research. If we're able to figure something out and figure out how it works, is it something that can be trained, that learned? Or is this another ability that only certain people have because they use that part of their brain? And if so, why? Why are they using it, not others?
Hmm.
Or can anybody do this? And so we've been pushing the boundaries with psychic remote viewing, transatlantic experiments for the last 4 years. And I tell you, I mean, I've surprised myself on several occasions. I think it has shocked me more than it shocked Richard, where I've been able to pinpoint the exact location he was in the States. And he was like, and even tell him what he was standing looking at in that moment,
Wow.
like describing exactly what he was seeing. And he was like, how on earth is this possible? I'm like, well, I don't know. Let's figure it out. So it has been an interesting journey, through childhood, through experiencing things in South Africa and Zimbabwe, all the way through to some of the stuff now. It's been pretty intense, but it
Yeah,
makes you a better investigator, I guess.
absolutely. What does that process look like for you doing the remote viewing?
Oh my gosh. So I've only ever remote viewed with Richard, or
Mhm.
so I thought. When we first started doing the experiments, I didn't have anything to kind of psychically latch onto. And so I found that I was using Richard as an anchor because I know his energy, I know him, he's a very good friend. And so I could kind of hone in on him and then sort of see what was around him. And at first, it was picking up like one or two little bits here and there. And he was like, well, I mean, it's not extremely impressive, but like there's something. There's enough for us to continue this research and see if it gets any better. But then during the course of these experiments, I started being able to pinpoint very particular details about the location or what he was looking at or the spirits that were said to haunt the place, the history of the location. And I was super excited. I ran downstairs to the living room. My mom sat there having a cup of coffee. And I was like, Mom, you'll never guess what I just did. And I told her, and she was like, you used to do that when you were a child. And I was like, wait, I'm sorry, what? She's like, oh yeah, you used to do it all the time with your cousin. Whenever something was wrong with her, you would walk up to me and go, hey, phone Auntie Cecilia, something's wrong with Talita. She's just slammed her fingers in the door. And I'd ask you, like, how do you know? And you'd be like, well, I checked in on her and I saw it.
Wow.
And I never realized that I did that as a child.
Hmm.
I had no memory of that. That must have been something that was completely natural to me that I thought was normal as a
Hmm.
child. Turns out it's not. Who would have thought? But it's only now that I started trying to figure out this process where I was kind of latching on to Richard and seeing what was around him that I started figuring out like, hey, I can do this with other people. I can kind of tune in and pinpoint where somebody or something is. Now the experiments are leaning more towards, do I need any connection at all? So we've always done it via an audio call, so I have no idea where he is. I can't
Mhm.
see anything. But do I even need the call? Or can we say at this time, on this day, tune in and tell me what you get?
Hmm.
And am I limited by distance? I mean, if I'm in South Africa and he's in America, would that make a difference? Does it make it more difficult? So we've only just sort of scratched the surface in the last 4 years, and I think there's so much more to it. Yeah, I'm excited to explore more. And once I have the answers, I'll let you know.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, that maybe it's more a muscle you're training than
Absolutely. I
anything
mean,
else.
yeah, it's got to be because the only way I can describe it is it's very different to walking into a haunted location and kind of using spidey senses to kind of scan the place and see what's there, or who's intelligent that will be able to communicate with you, or what's just residual energy. And it's different, again, to doing a tarot reading or a mediumship reading for someone where you're bringing through their guides and their loved ones.
Mhm.
That is a whole different connection. I recently remote viewed to find a missing woman in Norway,
Wow.
which I did, which is a little scary. But that was the first time that I had attempted it as an adult without Richard as my anchor. And I
Mhm.
had nothing to go on other than a photograph of this woman. And it was a very different way of tuning into it. So I'm still trying to figure that out and figure out how to articulate the difference between how you tune in psychically and what you can do to enhance it. Because at the moment, I'm still trying to figure that out myself. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That is
I,
really interesting for sure. One thing that is, it sounds like you're kind of edging into things I've not heard people try before, which is super interesting to me. That's is awesome. I can't help but wonder what would happen, and you would need like a third person to try this. But I wonder what would happen if you tried that with him, where he wasn't sure where he was. Have you tried that yet?
Oh, no, but I want to. That's a great experiment. Thanks.
Give that a shot. Let us know if you do that. I think
Yeah.
that you're going to end up with some interesting results there.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Thank you for that. I'm gonna call him after this and let him know. Like, by the way, Richard, you are not gonna get kidnapped.
yeah.
You don't know where you're going,
Blindfolded in the back of a van.
right?
It's for science. It's okay.
It's all for science.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And I mean, it just seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the more that you've leaned in to being a medium, it's like the more that your senses have expanded. Does that feel true for you?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I'm still discovering things every day.
Yeah.
I still have, quite recently, for instance, I've always been more clairaudient and claircognizant, which means I get information as if it's my own memories or I hear them. And I very rarely actually see things. I do, I do. And I have done my whole life where I've seen things, but it's not what I'm used to.
Hmm.
And I think seeing things scares the hell out of me. I'm actually quite a chicken when it comes to that.
Me
Don't mind
too.
hearing them, can't see them.
Yeah.
And recently, the clairvoyancy has been a lot stronger. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, no, I don't want to see them. No. I'm quite, and I think that's sort of a byproduct of doing the remote viewing where I have to see where I
Hmm.
am. So it's kind of training again that different aspect of your spidey senses. And it's strengthening the clairvoyance. And so now I'm seeing them more and I'm like, I don't know if I like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That I remember that in your book that you had talked about, like a lot of times that you had a fight or flight response to experiences. And I totally understand that because even if it feels like positive energy, like if I sense something, like especially if I'm alone, I get freaked out, you know? So what have you done to kind of help yourself with that and being able to be a little bit more in control?
It's trial and error. I guess,
Yeah.
when I first started developing my mediumship, I would run from everything. The moment I picked something up, I was like, oh, nope, I'm out. I'm done. This is not happening. It would scare the hell out of me. And my natural fight or flight would kick in, and 90% of the time, flight won.
Hmm.
Um, and it took a really long time for me to stand my ground and be like, no, you need to learn. I need to experience this. I need to like face this. And I guess I got used to it. But again, that was with little things, like seeing little things or hearing things, and then I got used to it. Now, seeing things again, it's like I have to face that all over again. Every
Hmm.
time I see something now, I've got to be like, no, you need to learn. Just because you see them, you hear them all the time, doesn't make a difference. So you really have to train yourself to do it. And I think that makes for a better investigator as well. we always watch TV shows and they're always like, can you do something? And then something happens and everyone runs off screaming. And you think like, you just asked for it to happen, right?
Yeah.
You literally just spent all night asking the spirits to knock, bump, stamp their feet, move something, light something up, and then you run when it happens. Because that is a natural instinct. That is a survival mode, like, nope, nope, I'm out.
Yeah.
And you don't realize just how strong that is until you're in that moment.
Yeah. Until you're facing it head on. Yeah. Absolutely.
You mentioned a few seconds ago one of the things, and it seems like you're very open to the idea of different tools and different methods to try to figure out like the right thing for a right situation. You did mention tarot there. Is that something that you utilize often or used to, or where are you on tarot?
I absolutely love tarot cards. I've been reading tarot since I was about 11 years old. So again, strange family. But what I love is not only doing tarot readings for people, but utilizing them in my investigations to read the building or to read the spirits that are within the building, because it helps me build a bigger picture of the location that I'm investigating. So I like mixing a blend of old and new techniques. I love things like I love Ouija boards, talking boards, absolutely love them because I feel like yes, you have the ideomotor effect. Yes, you have the subconscious moving of the planchette. Yes, there are things that we can debunk. However, I've had a few sessions where we've had things come through in a different language that no one around the board knew at all, a forgotten language from centuries ago that we had to Google Translate to figure out what it was saying. Now, how would that be possible? How would a bunch of people around a Ouija board that don't even know what language it is be able to give you accurate and direct responses in this language? So I like using things like that. But then again, I love doing EVP recordings and things alongside it. So we tell them, before you move the planchette to a letter, please could you say the letter via EVP? Because you've got something that validates one another. I like using crystals in investigations. I love using witchcraft in investigations, doing just different rituals to open up communication. I love using all sorts of weird tools and things, like anything I can get my hands on from different types of divination. And I think one of the coolest things I've recently learned is osteomancy, bone divination, which is incredible. It's really cool. But there's so many different uses for tarot cards in general. And I think people need to look at them a bit differently and, utilize them as tools in their investigations, not only for doing readings for people.
Is there a specific deck that you feel more drawn to that you've had the better use for, or does it matter for you?
Yeah. As I stare at 40 decks in front of me.
We understand.
Oh my gosh, no, I don't really. Okay, no, I'm lying. I do have a couple of favorites. Um, I think quite possibly my favorite deck to use at the moment is the Supernatural TV show, the Supernatural deck.
Awesome.
It's great. Let's get Sam and Dean and everybody in it. It's wonderful.
Love it.
I love it. It's really cool. No, there's no particular deck that really stands out though. I go through phases.
Yeah.
We actually almost bought that deck like a week ago.
Really?
We were like in the bookstore. I was like, "Hey, look, a supernatural one." I actually
It's
just picked up.
awesome.
It seems like it will be for sure. I actually just picked one up myself. I don't know if it'll show you. It's the Austin Osmond Spare deck. Just came out by the folks at Strange Attractor. Have
Oh,
you heard of
cool.
that yet?
No, I haven't.
They took he for people who are just like casual listeners who are not going to know at all who he was. He was turn of last century, basically created chaos magic, and you could argue that. Um, but he created a 79 card deck for personal use that was never produced. Someone found a copy of it, and they've made a copy that you can get. And it is unhinged. It is very cool. So that's a new
Amazing.
favorite of mine.
It has like his handwriting on it, like of what he interpreted the cards to mean and stuff like that. It's very
Yeah,
cool.
it is
That's
wild.
really cool. That's very, very cool. I'll need to have a look at that.
Yep.
I just told myself no more.
I keep
Stop
telling
buying
myself
them.
that. It's never
Yeah,
true.
it's never true.
No.
I love that though. I don't know that I've ever heard of anyone else using tarot during an investigation. I love that, and so would you say that you feel like as you're doing the reading for the investigation, like the spirits are communicating through the cards much like they would like a spirit board? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
Hmm.
sometimes if you know that you're dealing with a particular person, or there is said to be a woman that haunts this location, but people don't really have much to go on other than that, you can use tarot to divine more information about the person and have them come and give you a bit more info. So, in doing a tarot reading alongside EVP and that sort of thing, you might find that you're able to validate a lot more than you think.
Hmm.
It's a great tool to use, and not many people do.
Yeah. I like to what you're saying of using two methods at the same time to just have a little bit more data, to validate what you're experiencing. That's awesome.
Absolutely. If you haven't already noticed, EVP is kind of my thing, and it's only because I'm predominantly clairaudient. So
Yeah.
if I can hear them, I can record them. Or it's my theory anyway. Doesn't always work,
Uh-huh.
but I like to think so. So usually when I walk into a location, if I'm doing a walkthrough, I will listen to each room, each area, and where I can hear more, then I'm like, okay, this is an audio room. This is where we focus on EVP recordings, spirit box, any instrumental trance communication of any sort is going to do well because I can hear them in this room. Whereas if I walk into other rooms and I see something, I'm like, right, okay, so here we're going to set up cameras, thermal cameras, SLS, whatever the case is, full spectrum, anything that we can visually capture any evidence. But I think using my spidey senses that way on investigations has kind of just helped me hone in on where the hotspots are, first of all, and what equipment to use. I've had people that are like, well, how can you always get EVPs? I'm like, I don't know, but I record EVP where I hear them.
Hmm.
So it just kind of makes sense to me. um, yeah, it's useful. I don't say never. I very rarely use mediumship on investigations.
Okay.
I don't know why. I can't do both. I can't do the investigating side and mediumship very well at the same time.
Uh-huh.
That's very strange. I have to like sit down and like, okay, now I'm going to do a tarot reading. Now I'm going to tune into the location. This is what's going to happen. And then the rest of the time I need to do like structured EVP
Hmm.
recordings and things. I struggle with both at the same time. Too much to keep
Yeah.
on top of.
Well, I mean, it feels like it's using different parts of your brain,
Yeah, absolutely.
so I can understand. But it's interesting because it's like, it sounds like you kind of start off medium, like, let me hear what's around me, and then let me use the tools to investigate it.
That's exactly it.
Love
Yeah.
it.
So throughout the different sections of your book, one of the things that I think is interesting, you've got a whole section about the idea of a cleansing. And I think it would be cool for our listeners if you kind of told us, what does that mean, and what's a reason someone would need to do that in a place?
Everybody always thinks that cleansing your home means that you have something negative in your house or that there is a spirit that you need to get rid of, which is not always the case. We have a bad day at work and we come home and we're grouchy, or the kids are annoying you and you're a little bit frustrated, you haven't had time off work for a while, or whatever the case is, whatever's going on in your life that's frustrating you or upsetting you, you get home and you carry all of that energy into your house. You visit locations that might have a very dark past, and you kind of pick up that psychic sludge and you're walking it back into your house. So you've got to think of the buildup of negative energy in your home, and whether that's teenagers going through puberty, slamming doors, sibling rivalry, arguing with a spouse, whatever the case is, anything like that builds up in your home. And every now and again, it's a really good idea just to cleanse all of that energy out. Now, Personally, I use sage to cleanse my house to start off with. But if you're thinking about it, sage is removing negative energy and giving you a blank slate. So you can then go in and start infusing your space with positive energy and things that uplift you. So things like frankincense. Frankincense is known to remove depression and to help with really bad moods and to keep you calmer. So by burning frankincense resin in your house, you're putting everybody in a much calmer mood, and you're sort of leveling out what's going on with you emotionally that balances what's going on in your home. And so there's different things like sweetgrass, rosemary. Rosemary helps with concentration. So if you need to focus on a project and you're finding the energy in your home a bit chaotic and you can't sit down and just focus on what you need to, cleanse your space with sage, give it a while, then burn some rosemary in that room. That helps with focusing on one particular task. It helps calm your mind. It's great for meditation. So there are so many other things that you can do, not just cleansing your home to rid it of spirits. However, if you do have something in your house that you need to remove, my go-to would be Palo Santo. I use Palo Santo and sage, and I start in the east side of my house, close absolutely all the windows and doors besides the front door, and I kind of work my way from the top eastern side of my house through every room, around every doorway, burning the smoke in every corner of each part of the room, in the closets and things, anywhere where something could hide, any negative energy. And I'm not saying like an entity, I'm just saying stale negative energy that can hang about. You want to get rid of that too. And then just work your way through your house up to the front door and push whatever it is out of your front door. If you think that it is an entity, you need to state your case. Like, this is my home. You are not welcome here. If you're negative in any way or mean any harm, you do not belong here. You do not have permission to be here. And kind of reclaim your space. If you are just cleaning your own negative energy out of the house, I mean, if you want to tell it to get the hell out, sure. If that makes you feel better, it's not necessary. But I look like a crazy person when I'm running through my house because I'm very straightforward. There's none of this love and light. I'm like, hey, you get the hell out. Like, move.
I love that.
But yeah, it's good to cleanse your car. We spend a lot of time in our car. We get so frustrated getting stuck in traffic.
Mm-hmm.
You start getting aggressive. You start getting frustrated. You start getting annoyed that you're late for work or whatever the case is, or you can't find a parking and some idiot just took the parking space in front of you. You know, all of that emotion is in your space. So people don't think about cleansing their car or cleansing their workspace, wherever they may work, their office, their garage, their whatever. It's not just a case of getting rid of entities, but getting rid of just bad juju in general.
Yep. I've never thought about cleansing my car, but that is a very good idea. And
also, if you keep crystals in your car, make sure it's not where sun can reflect off them and start a fire. Just FYI, that happens.
Oh no.
Boy, I never
Duly
thought of that
noted.
before. That would
awful.
be super unfortunate.
Yeah.
There might be something to say to be said about the whole workspace thing. Some of the offices I've worked at throughout my life have had pretty bad just you walk in and you just feel people's spirits having been sucked out of it. That's an interesting
I mean,
thought, too.
especially if you're working a 9 to 5 and it's the same thing every day, and there's some bickering at work or colleagues that gossip and people that just don't get along, you're gonna have that. You're never gonna have a space where absolutely everybody gets along all the time. Even the best of friends are gonna fight. You're gonna bicker, you're gonna argue, you're gonna get irritated with each other or whatever the case is. And so when you have that in a work environment and no one bothers cleansing that space and it just builds and builds and builds, it makes your workplace unpleasant. People feel more anxiety when they walk into work. They because they pick up on it. People feel a little more irritated, and that then filters through the workplace and people start bickering at each other a bit more. So it's worth, if you have an office, if you own a office block or whatever business you have. It's worth just cleansing that negative energy out for the sake of everybody who works there, and customers will pick up on that feeling as well, you know.
Yep.
So it is just all round. It can't hurt you in any way to cleanse your spaces. The only thing
No.
it's going to do is calm things down and make it a bit more pleasant.
And I can definitely feel the energy shift, like especially I like Palo Santo a whole lot. And I've had to kind of train Jonathan of if I'm burning Palo Santo, it doesn't mean something bad has happened. Like he's like, what happened? You know, because we have had some strange things happen here before, but sometimes it's just like you just need a reset. You just need a different vibration. And for people who do have those negative work environments, I used to do sage spray because I worked in buildings where I couldn't burn anything, but the sage spray would help kind of, you know, do the same thing.
100%. I make a lot of my own cleansing sprays and things. I mean, I have rosemary spray with sandalwood and all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
stuff for meditations. I've got sage and frankincense to cleanse. I've got, oh my gosh, I make such a variety of them. And it depends, you know, sometimes you just want to uplift the energy to make it a
Mm-hmm.
bit more summery and light and fun. And lemon essential oil is great for that. Lemon and sweetgrass and all of that is so wonderful for things like that. So yeah, it is just changing the vibration and uplifting things in your space.
Yep, definitely. You have had some experiences with like negative entities, and I mean, I'm not sure what terminology you would use to describe it, but they got a little too close. Would you call it like a possession, or how would you describe some of those instances?
I would call them a step in.
Okay.
And I'm always very reluctant to use the word demon or anything
Hmm.
demonic. I think energy is, you know, you have good energy and you have negative energy, and that negative energy could be something that's really old, that seems almost biblical, that's been around for a very long time and has never actually been human. Or it might just be you're investigating a prison and there's a serial killer that's still there. And, you know, just because he's on the other side doesn't mean he's sunshine and roses. He's still going to be a negative person with that mental health issues that he had prior. And, you know, they're exactly the same on the other side. So I guess, yeah, I am very reluctant to call things demonic or
Hmm.
that sort of thing. But I've had experiences where something got a bit too close, and at the time, I didn't really know anything about trance mediumship. I didn't know that mediums could allow things to use their bodies, like step in and use their voice, or um, you know, show themselves on the person's face, or use their body in several different ways. I didn't know that was a thing. And so when it happened to me the first time where something got a bit too close and I was none the wiser and it stepped in, I freaked out completely. I mean, I broke down crying once I came around and I realized what the hell had just happened. I felt violated.
Hmm.
And it very quickly taught me that I don't know nearly enough about the paranormal and that I need to work on my own protection and, you know, your own grounding, your own spiritual protection, your own awareness of what's around you, and making sure that you put up a boundary and you tell them, this is my space. Under no circumstance are you allowed anywhere within this space. We can chat, we can communicate, we can whatever. You do not pass this boundary. And I think that's why I get really irritated with people on investigations where you have somebody that's like, oh, feel free to touch one of us. No, this is my space. You do not speak on my behalf or use our energy. You do not have permission to use my energy. You do not have permission to step anywhere close to me. I am the only person that can give you that permission. And so a lot of investigators tend to do that to get a reaction on investigations. And it is so bad
Hmm.
because if you are dealing with something negative, you know, if you are dealing with something that is perhaps really old and can mess with people and seeks to do harm, and you have an investigator going, hey, use my energy, come on, do this, do that, and you're inviting them, that can lead to a whole new world of problems that you couldn't even fathom. So I guess I'm so cautious because of the experiences that I had.
Yeah.
And I guess people don't realize just how harmful that can be until you've had something uninvited step in and use you like a meat suit. Listen, investigating's fun, not worth that.
Yeah,
I'm so
absolutely.
sorry. I draw the line there. I'm no one's meat puppet.
I don't blame you. Yeah, that was definitely one of the parts of your book where I was like, oh, that's terrifying. And I can just imagine like how violating that feels of.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't realize that that can happen. And I think that's another reason I wanted to share that in the book. I had no idea. And when
Mhm.
it happened to me, I was like, people need to know about this. Like, you've got all these investigators watching these shows that have no idea. They're just copying what they see on TV. Now,
Yeah.
let's face it, it's television. You take it with a grain of salt or a kilogram of salt, you know. But then you have them in these locations doing the same things and mimicking those things and saying, use me, use my energy, without actually realizing just how bad that can be.
Mhm.
So every experience that I had that made me think like, wait, hang on a second. Every aha moment, I wanted to share those stories in this book so that if there is somebody that's interested in investigating or developing their mediumship, that they have a starting point. They can go,
Mhm.
wow, that actually happens. Well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting. A lot of what you're saying is about setting an intention and boundaries, and I there's a part of me that's like, doesn't it need to be more complicated than that? But it feels like it really is just about the intention and what you're setting.
Yeah, 100%. People think it's this big old complicated
Yeah.
thing to do psychic protection and that. No, you set boundaries with people on a daily basis.
Hmm.
You walk into a place, somebody you don't know comes into your space, you immediately like, wait, hang on a second. If a perfect stranger walks up to you and they just want to grab you, you're going to be like, I'm sorry, excuse me. No, that is your space. You do not. This is my area. This is my space. You don't come near me. So why wouldn't you be the same with the other side?
Hmm.
You're just setting your boundaries and just saying like, hey, listen, I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to communicate. I want to know your story. I want to know the history of this place. I want to know what's going on the other side. However, this is my space. This is my boundary. You respect that. I will respect you, and we can have a great time.
Hmm.
And it is as simple as setting your boundaries just as you do with people in this life.
How would you describe the other side? Like, I don't even know how to ask this question, but that's how I'm going to ask
That's a
it. How would you
loaded
just, I
question.
know.
How much time do we have?
All the time.
Oh my goodness. I definitely believe that there is a very big difference between what we would put into a little box as a ghost and what we would define as a spirit. I think ghosts are people who haunt a location, who have unfinished business, who maybe died very suddenly and they don't know that they're on the other side, or they don't quite want to accept it. For instance, if at the White Swan Hotel here in my hometown, if Paul John Smith was shot in 1845 and he has unfinished business and he wants to tell people who killed him or whatever the case is, I think that's the very definition of a ghost. Somebody that's still hanging around to tell that story or
Hmm.
whatever the case may be. Whereas a spirit would be somebody like my dad or my brother who accepted that they passed away. They're not bound to any location. They're able to come and go as they please. And I think the other side, I think it's just another plane. I think you have good and evil and everything, just as you do in this world. I feel like you have it in that realm. I don't think, I don't know. I have questions about it myself because, for instance, when my father passed away, my mom and my aunts, whenever they received information psychically, and it was something really important to do with family or whatever the case is, my grandfather, their father, would come through to them and pass along the information. When my father passed away, my mom and both her sisters all had a dream on the exact same evening, one in Zimbabwe, one in South Africa, and one in the UK. All of them had a dream that their father came to say goodbye to them and said to them, don't worry, John's going to take over now, my dad. I can be at my final rest now. I can be at peace. I don't need to look after you girls anymore. And that was the last time any of them had ever picked up anything from their dad psychically. So whether there is another level that we go to eventually where it is an eternal peace and that's it, that would be great. I mean, I don't have those answers, but hopefully one day.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully before I cross over to the other side, I will get those answers.
It's incredible. But I mean, I think what you're saying resonates a lot with me of like, there is a difference between ghosts and spirits, you know, and it makes sense that people unfortunately get stuck here, you know.
I
Do
mean,
you,
if you think about it, think about a place like Shepton Mallet Prison here in the UK that we investigate quite often. You're in prison for committing a heinous crime. You're a serial killer or, you know, a rapist or a murderer, whatever the case is. And your upbringing, even though you may not be of the Christian faith or whatever, you are still raised with the belief that if you do negative things, you're going to burn in hell or you're going to be damned, and or whatever the case is. And so how many of those souls, they get to the other side and they refuse to leave where they are purely because they're worried about judgment. They're worried about their final judgment. I mean, that's what we're taught, right? That you'll be judged on the other side. So maybe it depends a lot on your upbringing, your what religious lens you're looking at things through, whether that's Christian faith or whether it's Islam or whatever the case may be. You know, I think how we perceive the afterlife and how we behave on the other side also has a lot to do with how we were raised and how we lived our lives. So, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Do you feel like you have ever been able to, or you could help spirits cross over?
Okay, so this is where I put my hands up and I go, I have no idea.
Okay.
I pretend to know, right? So I find it really hard to believe when people are like, oh, hey, we're just all gonna hold hands and sing Kumbaya and think of a bright white light, and that's gonna help the spirit that's been stuck for, I don't know, 300 years. Really?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Like, I find it really hard to wrap my brain around that. And that could just be, you know, my dad's side coming through in full force. Like, I can't wrap my brain around how that would work. And who knows? It might be that simple. I've seen other people trying to do spirit rescue and cross spirits over. First of all, I think it's none of your business because maybe they don't want to go. Maybe they still have like some business that they want to take care of, or maybe like who you to say, hey, okay, it's time for you to go. Maybe I don't want to. Maybe I'm quite happy just, you know, haunting somewhere else for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know. So to answer that, I don't have enough information yet to give you an answer. I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in terms of like there could be some ego involved with people who are trying to do that. You know, it's like you're right. Like who
100%.
made us the authority on that?
I definitely think, you know, if anyone is able to do it, then great. How amazing for those spirits. You know, we did have an experience at the White Swan Hotel. There was a woman in 1845, a lady of the night, Virginia Black, and I speak about her in my book. And we did a Ouija session in the room. It was myself and a few other women, Karen A. Dullman from the Talking Board Historical Society, Susan Cummins, who's an exceptional author and investigator. There was a bunch of us ladies doing a paranormal pajama party, and Aaron Sagers happened to be there as well. And we did have Virginia Black come through, and she did ask for help. And at that point, I was like, hands up, I don't know what to do here. This is not my wheelhouse. You guys think you know what you're doing? By all means, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat back and I recorded EVP at the same time. Now, the people who were involved, they did the whole white light thing and trying to help the spirit cross over. What I found interesting was the only male in the room was Aaron, who was just as skeptical as I was. And when we played the recording back, we had a male voice saying, she sees the light, she's gone to the light, she's gone. I found that really interesting. I went back to investigate that space numerous times after that, and I could never make contact with Virginia again.
Wow.
Until recently. But now it feels like she's not bound by the location. She's not tied down in any way, that she can come and go as she pleases, just as my father or my brother would.
Okay.
So whether or not they helped her release her own guilt or whatever the case may be, or that emotion that was keeping her tied to that location, I don't know. Maybe it was just like a really good therapy session and, she thought about things and she's no longer bound to it. I can't give you the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But I did find it extremely fascinating that we had EVPs in a male voice saying those words and then not being able to make contact with Virginia again in that space for so long. It's interesting. It's food for thought.
Absolutely. And I mean, what strikes me is like there was permission, like she was asking for it, right? Like
Absolutely.
nobody was trying to enforce their own will onto her. It was like, I'm ready. Please help me.
Yeah.
I don't
I don't know what to do. Like, how do we do
Yeah.
this? And we're like, well, we don't really know what to do, but we're going to give it a go.
Yeah. We're gonna
I
try.
think that's a different story. If you have somebody that's reaching out to you and asking you for that help, then
Yeah.
yes, sure. But who are you to decide for somebody else when it's their time?
Just go around evicting spirits.
Yeah, like, no, don't do that. That's
Yeah.
not very nice. I can tell you now, if I was on the other side and I was haunting my house and you came to cross me over, I'd be well upset with you. Like, we would have issues, buddy. Like, this is my home. Don't you be evicting me.
Yeah.
If anything, you're just going to upset them.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah. I think that the thought from a few moments ago about you know, people kind of, the spirits may be conforming to the belief systems that they had when they were, corporeal. There's a set of channeled things called the Seth material. It's from the 50s and 60s in central New York, upstate New York, where this woman has spent a good chunk of her life channeling this entity who called itself Seth, who talked a lot about those types of things. One of the things that Seth said was, whenever you do die, you're going to spend some amount of time in a place that you think you deserve to go, and then eventually you will realize that it's more complicated than that, and then there's this whole, like, almost Akashic record style reincarnation potential there. But I always thought it was really interesting that would be a potential.
I think that if you don't learn your lessons in this life, if you do not become a spiritual person and reach whatever understanding we're supposed to reach by the end of our lives, if we haven't learned those lessons, I think that, you do get reincarnated. Like, hey, go back, do it again. Like, you need to learn. Until you do, I think you're going to keep coming back. I think you do spend some time on the other side, and time is different there. I guess you get to watch over your family, and like my grandfather did until my father was on the other side, and then whether or not my grandfather's reincarnated, if he had to come back, or whether or not it's his final rest, who knows? We don't know if that's a thing. But you can't dismiss all the young children that have past life experiences and things and have these memories and stuff. You know, again, are they remembering past lives because of reincarnation? Or, I mean, I myself remember past lives. Or is this something genetic? Is this ancestral memory that's passed down through our DNA that we believe is a past life, but it's perhaps just your great grandfather's memories that are passed down through your DNA, just like everything else, just like your eye color or your hair color or whatever the case may be. So I think it's really fascinating. I'd like to think there's reincarnation. I'd like to think we come back. From what I learned from those on the other side, I think there's potential for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's something we'll only find out when we get there.
Yep.
I'm so nosy. I'm going to ask so many questions when I'm on the other side. They're going to be sick of me. I already asked so many questions this side.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, maybe that's why they keep me here. I mean, I've had some really near-death things happen, and so far I'm still this side of the Ouija board. I think the other side are like, oh, for God's sakes, not yet.
Not her.
We're not ready for her yet.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I have the same questions, and I think it again, it makes you a good investigator that you're just like, I want to know, I want to understand, and we need science to catch up
Absolutely.
to answer some of these.
The biggest thing for me is what if we can invent something that is like picking up a phone and dialing the other side and speaking to our loved ones?
Mm-hmm.
What if that's possible? And absolutely knowing that it's them on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So what if?
Yeah.
Like, as long as there is a potential for that one day, as long as we're able to communicate with the other side through EVP and spirit boxes and etc., science does need to catch the hell up. Like, come on now. I want that telephone to the dead. Thomas Edison was onto something, man. And that was in the 1920s. You would have thought somebody'd do that by now.
Yeah. You have experienced a whole lot of loss in your life.
Yes.
How does being a medium kind of impact your experience with that kind of loss?
I think it's both good and bad. I think obviously I deal with grief in a very different way because I'm kind of like, oh, well, they're on the other side. Now they can pop by and visit whenever they want, And I have family that come through quite often. I just released my second book a couple days ago, and my brother and my dad were around, like, hey, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And that was really nice for me. I still have that support from my family and that on the other side. And it blew my mind when I was going through chemotherapy and my spidey senses kind of shut down. I was like, oh my gosh, is this what normal people feel like? This is so lonely. Like, there's just nothing. Like, you have nothing. You have like no A team on the other side supporting you. It blew my mind that normal people, death is so final. It's such a final thing. And when I say, the good side of it is that I'm still able to communicate with my loved ones on the other side. I mean, it's heartbreaking because I'd give anything to give them a hug and a kiss and, sit down and have a proper conversation with them for hours or go on a road trip or do something with them. So, yes, you miss all of that, but you still have that connection. On the bad side, you don't deal with grief very well. You think you do, but you kind of have that mindset of, oh, it's okay, they're just on the other side. And you don't actually deal with the gravity of the situation. Like, you don't actually grasp the fact that, like, hey, I'm no longer going to have this person with me.
Yeah.
So I guess that was something that I recently had to deal with and face. Like, I always went, oh, it's fine. Oh, it's fine. They're on the other side. It's okay. When I wasn't okay. And I hadn't dealt with it emotionally. And that was a bit of a slap in the face. That was a lesson I recently learned. So, there's good sides and bad sides to it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. It's like They're still with you, but just in a very different way. And you do have to be able to work through the loss of the physical
Yeah, absolutely.
presence. Yeah.
Which you don't realize. Well, I never realized just how badly I was dealing with that
Hmm.
until it was brought up by a witch doctor quite recently. And I was like, well, I'll be damned. I thought I dealt with that.
Calling me
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, literally, I was called out by my ancestors on the other side. Thanks, guys.
Well, congratulations on the second book. Tell us about that.
It is called Beneath the African Sky. It's Supernatural Africa. I went back to South Africa and Zimbabwe for the first time in 8 years, and it was great to go and explore the supernatural side of things there. Cryptids, aliens, have readings done by African psychic mediums and things, and just the cultural differences, and African witchcraft and aliens and mermaids. Who knew Zimbabwe had a mermaid problem? What? I was
Not
like,
me.
I mean, okay, neither did I. I'm born in Zimbabwe and I didn't know that. So it was really fascinating going back and delving into anything supernatural that I could find. None of it was really planned, um, but it was a month-long journey of just the most serendipitous moments, meeting the most random people that led me to another supernatural story or another cryptid, or it was great. So it is very much like a travel log. Copy here. There you go.
Beautiful.
It's kind of like a travel log. It's interviews with fascinating people about witchcraft and traditional healers and all sorts of things. But I named it Beneath the African Sky because my father was writing a book about his time in the Rhodesian War, and it was called Beneath the Rhodesian Sky. And
Mm-hmm.
he never got to finish his book. He passed away before he could complete it. So it was a little nod to my dad, Beneath the
That's
African
awesome.
Sky. Yeah.
That is
It
awesome.
it was a very cool journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So I know what I'm doing when we're done with this. I will be ordering that. It sounds
Thank you.
fascinating. And I would love to have you back on after we've had a chance to read that book and have more conversations if you're open to that.
I would love that. Are you kidding? That'd be great.
Yeah, thank
Love
you.
it.
A couple of points in there. You talk about some experiences with what you're calling elementals, and I'm curious what you would describe that as.
Elemental spirits are born of earth energy. They're the elements, earth, fire, wind, water. So we have earth spirits, we have fire spirits like the salamanders, we have all sorts of different weird creatures. And if somebody had told me 20 years ago, hey, by the way, there are spirits on the other side that are not human, they're from the earth, and oh yeah, by the way, they kind of look like, Gollum or Groot
Mhm.
from Guardians of the Galaxy, or weird, bizarre creatures. I would have laughed at you and told you to carry on writing another Lord of the Rings kind of novel, like, yeah, sure, whatever. But there are. Everything does have an energy. A lot of them are very intelligent. They are often mistaken for what society nowadays would call demons or demonic, and it's only because they're completely misunderstood. They're they're very mischievous. They will poke and prod at people, and if they get a reaction, they're like, "Oh, ow. Oh, if I do this, it scares them. Oh, if I do that, they actually like that." So a lot of the times you'll hear people saying they witnessed a goblin-like creature, or they saw what looked like a fairy, or, strange iridescent balls of light, or whatever the case may be. And those are just earth spirits. They're used by witches a lot when we work with elementals. I mean, we call the corners, we call on the elements, we call on the elementals to help us with our magic. Um, a lot of times they're conjured to look after particular things. You know, centuries ago, you would have conjured an elemental to look after your water source, to look after your well, to look after your livestock, whatever the case may be. So yeah, they're very strange little creatures and very odd spirits that sometimes just get a really bad rap. But yeah, they're there. I never believed it until I saw this weird, what looked like a massive spider with the head of a bat crawling on my ceiling and like scurrying across the living room ceiling. And I was sat there like, what the hell was that? And then I was told, oh yeah, elementals. And I was like, what, those are real? Like, hang on a second.
So.
I've barely been able to process that there's like dead human spirits.
Yeah.
Like, never mind animals and pets and now creatures. What? Yeah, they're very interesting. But a lot of times people will mistake them for something demonic or negative, just a malevolent entity.
Mm-hmm.
They're just very curious and naughty, very naughty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you say that's like what fairies are, or fairies something completely different?
They are part of the elementals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, that's not something we've looked into too much, but it's definitely something I'm interested in learning more about.
It is definitely fascinating. I will say, have an extremely open mind because you will run into some very bizarre things. It takes a lot to kind of wrap your head around it.
Yeah.
You got to be very open-minded when delving into anything to do with elementals.
Yep. Absolutely. What advice would you give people who are interested in starting to investigate the paranormal?
First and foremost, why? Know your why. Because if you're just investigating for fame and fortune, you want to get a TV show, you want to be seen in the public eye, whatever the case may be, then fine, say it. Say that's why you're interested in it. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. I work in television. I produce more than I'm on screen because I hate being in front of a camera. But if that's what you want to do, fine. That's okay. But make sure you know what your why is before setting out to do this. If you want to tell the stories of those on the other side, if you just love the history and you want to shine a light on that or the locations, the particular buildings, and you want to raise money to save those historic places, great. No matter what your why is, be honest about it. Because if you're communicating with the other side, they will see straight through you. If you're there just wanting to be on TV and you're there to get that Class A EVP that's going to give you your 15 minutes of fame on, you know, TikTok or whatever the hell it might be, the spirits on the other side know what your intentions are. They know your true intentions. So don't try and pull the wool over their eyes. In order to be a successful and a decent investigator, always remember you're going to have to respect the other side. And as much respect as you show them, you'll receive. So if you have the right intentions and you're honest about your intentions, you will find that you will have more interaction with the other side and better communication. So I guess if you're starting out, be honest about your why, show respect, and make sure you believe in something. You know, whether that is your Christian faith or whether that is whatever faith you are, whether it's the love of your family, or have something that you feel is worth fighting for, something good. Because if you do come across something dark on the other side, it's your faith and your belief in something good in your life that's going to get you through it. You know, it doesn't happen that often where you come across something that dark, but hey, can't hurt to be prepared.
Absolutely. That is wonderful advice. Thank you very much. Yeah. So, MJ, where can people find you to follow you?
If you'd like to know anything about the work that I do, or just sort of a general overview of everything, television, books, etc., you can find me on my website, mjdickson.com, or you can find me on Facebook, and that will be MJV Dickson. That'll be my public page, so you can reach out on there and have a chat. I'm always open to chatting with people and meeting people at events. I love that. If you would like to have access to more of my blogs, more of my research, behind the scenes footage from my trips to Africa and any of the research and stuff that I do, I have a Patreon page, and that's patreon.com/MJ Dickson. And yeah, we do hangouts on Patreon once a month, and we do sort of a book club. You get to read my books before they're released as I write the chapters.
Awesome.
Yeah, we do all sorts. There's workshops, there's all sorts of stuff on there. And it starts from as little as about $5 a month. So to be a Patreon member, I love my online community. I absolutely adore them. Yeah. And if you want to know anything about events that I do, you can head over to sageparanormal.co.uk. And that has my paranormal clothing and paranormal card games and all sorts of stuff on there.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm very sad because we live in Virginia, and you're going to be here like a week after we move to New York.
No!
I know. I was like, I saw that yesterday when I was on your website. I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna miss you like by a week.
Yeah, we're doing Sage Paracon. So it's my mini convention. People tend to read the word Paracon and think it's a huge event. It's only about 40 people. And it's just a great weekend of workshop and hands-on things that we do with the guys and investigating and talks, and we get to hang out in an awesome location. But yeah, it's Sage Paracon's at Bell Grove Plantation in Virginia. Boo!
I
You can
know.
always just delay it.
I know. If we hadn't hired movers, we probably would. We'll see. I'm sure there will be a time when our paths can align, and
I hope so.
I hope so too.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Get together in person. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you so very much for this conversation. I have loved it very much, and I cannot wait to order your newest book and devour that. You're a wonderful storyteller. So,
oh, thank you. Oh, don't, you'll make me cry. I'm such a sap. Honestly. Oh, I read my first Amazon reviews on the first book, and I sat at home crying for 3 days. I was a sobbing absolute wreck. Thank you so much. I appreciate being a guest on your show, and I adored the conversation, and I'd love to do it again.
Awesome. We would love that as well.
Thank you very much. This has been great.
All right. You take care, okay?
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for being here. If you have a strange story you want to share with us, email us at seekerandskeptic@gmail.com. We look forward to talking to you soon.